Have you ever been hurt by someone who wanted to see you fall? Not by accident, not through misunderstanding, but by design. Someone who chose to betray you. Someone who watched to see if you'd break, if you'd explode, if you'd crumble. And yet, you didn't react. You didn't fight for validation. You didn't run after them with explanations or anger. You simply remained still. To the world, it might have looked like weakness, but to those who truly understand life, to the Stoics, that silence was your power. Because sometimes, the strongest response is no response at all. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." When someone betrays us, the primitive part of our mind screams for justice, for retribution, for some dramatic grand finale that says, "You can't treat me like this and get away with it." But here's the truth. When we fight fire with fire, we burn ourselves too. Revenge is loud, it's impulsive, it's emotional. But silence is surgical. When you respond with stillness, you rob your betrayer of what they crave most, your reaction. They expected you to collapse. They expected drama, breakdowns, desperate messages. Instead, they got peace, bothered, unmoved. That's not weakness. That's evolution. Think about this. What if your silence is not surrender, but strategy? What if walking away isn't losing, but choosing yourself over chaos? This is where Stoicism becomes more than philosophy. It becomes armor. Because emotional restraint is not the absence of emotion. It's the disciplined mastery of emotion. The Stoics taught that we don't control what others do. We only control how we respond, and in that response lies our true character. Let me ask you this: who has the real power? The one who lashes out in anger, or the one who feels the fire but chooses to stay still? Who's stronger? The person who explodes to feel in control, or the one who feels every ounce of pain and still walks forward with calm, quiet dignity? You see, your rise doesn't need to be announced. Your healing doesn't need an audience. And your silence? It's not an absence of strength. It's a declaration of it. Time has a beautiful way of revealing what words cannot. Eventually, those who hurt you, they will notice your silence. And when they look again, they won't see the broken version of you they expected. They'll see someone wiser, stronger, untouchable. Not because you sought revenge, but because you refused to become like them. This is the paradox of power. The less you chase, the more you attract. The less you react, the more you protect your peace. The less you respond, the more they wonder. Let them talk. Let them twist your story. Let them believe they won. Because your life doesn't need their approval. It needs your attention. You don't have time to fight small battles with small minds. Your energy is sacred. Your path is forward. Your peace is not up for negotiation. So if you're in that silent space right now, if you've been betrayed, abandoned, or misunderstood, and you're tempted to react, pause. Remember this: the most powerful people in history weren't the loudest. They were the most centered. You don't need revenge. You don't need validation. You only need clarity and the discipline to rise without noise. Let them see the version of you they thought they destroyed. Come back stronger, quieter, and completely free. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, don't just scroll past. Leave a comment. Share your story. Or simply write, "I choose peace," And if you're ready to keep walking the Stoic path with us, subscribe for more wisdom, clarity, and strength, because in a world full of noise, you are learning to rise in silence. Part 1. They knew what they were doing, but you still hold the power. Let's stop pretending for a moment. Let's stop saying things like, maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe they just made a mistake. Maybe I'm overreacting. No. They knew. They knew exactly what they were doing when they betrayed you, when they twisted your words, when they used your kindness against you, when they turned your loyalty into their leverage. That betrayal, it wasn't a misstep. It was a decision. They saw how patient you were, how deeply you trusted. They saw how you gave them the benefit of the doubt, time and time again, and they took it all and ran with it. They exploited your silence, not because they misunderstood it, but because they counted on it. Because they knew you wouldn't fight back. You wouldn't cause drama. You wouldn't expose them. And so, they betrayed you quietly, comfortably, thinking they would walk away untouched. But here's the hard truth. They weren't confused. They weren't unaware. They made a calculated move. And now you're left with the pieces. It hurts, doesn't it? Not just the betrayal itself, but the awareness that someone could see your love, your goodness, your loyalty, and still choose to use it as a weapon. This is where most people spiral. They start replaying everything, looking for what they did wrong. But listen closely. This was not about you. It was about who they are. And here's where Stoicism becomes more than just ancient philosophy. It becomes your shield. The Stoics taught one fundamental truth. We cannot control what others do. We can only control how we respond. That's it. We don't control the betrayal. We don't control the lies, the backstabbing, or the manipulation. But we do control what happens next. So, what's next? Do you chase them down, demanding answers? Do you try to make them feel what they made you feel? Do you let their actions poison your peace? Or do you pause? Do you breathe? Do you hold the line of your dignity? Do you rise, not because you want revenge, but because you refuse to be lowered by their choices? That's Stoicism. That's power. When someone wrongs you intentionally, the pain they create stays with them, even if it looks like they've moved on. Because the truth, what you do to others, echoes within yourself. They may laugh now. They may feel untouchable. But time has a way of revealing everything, and character always outlives cleverness. You might be sitting there thinking, but I was loyal. I was good to them. Yes, you were. And that's something to honor, not regret. Don't let their betrayal make you regret your loyalty. Don't let their manipulation make you abandon your kindness. That's exactly how they win, when you let their darkness dim your light. Stoicism doesn't mean becoming cold. It means staying warm in a world that tries to freeze you out. It means saying, you don't get to shape me with your chaos. I decide who I become. So take this time not to chase justice, but to build something better. A stronger, calmer, more grounded you. Let your silence be your strength. Let your distance be your boundary. Let your peace be your loudest message. You don't owe anyone revenge. You owe yourself restoration. They knew what they were doing. But now, you know what you're doing too. You're walking away, not because you lost, but because you finally chose yourself. And that, my friend, is a victory they'll never understand. If this message resonated with you, don't hold it in. Share your thoughts below. Comment, I choose peace, if you're done letting betrayal define your story. And if you're ready to keep walking this path of stoic strength and emotional freedom, hit that subscribe button, because your future deserves your focus, not their betrayal. Part 2. When you stop explaining, the power shifts. There comes a moment in your life when you get tired of explaining, tired of defending, tired of proving who you are to people who've already decided who you aren't. That's not giving up. That's a shift in power. It's the moment you realize, I don't owe my peace to anyone's misunderstanding. And in that moment, quietly, without warning, the power begins to shift. You see, people often aren't sorry for what they did to you. They're just sorry they lost control over you. That's why they panic when you go silent. That's why they start rewriting the narrative when you walk away. Because it's not your pain they're concerned with. It's their power. When you stop reacting, you break the cycle. When you stop defending yourself, you no longer play their game. And when you stop explaining your worth, you finally begin living from it. This quote, it's not just about dying. It's about wasting your life trying to convince others that you matter. It's about the moments you sacrifice your dignity to be understood. It's about the energy you pour into people who will never see you clearly because they're too committed to misunderstanding you. That's not life. That's a prison. And Stoicism teaches you how to walk out of it, quietly, firmly, finally. Let me ask you something. How many hours have you spent defending yourself to someone who already made up their mind about you? How much energy have you wasted arguing in circles, chasing clarity from those who thrive in confusion? Now imagine if all that time, all that mental space, had been used to build you, to develop peace, to build strength, to pursue the life you were meant to live. This is the moment you begin to take it back. Because here's what most people don't tell you. You don't need to explain your boundaries. You don't need to justify your silence. You don't need to prove why you walked away. People who respect you won't need a manual to treat you right. And those who constantly need explanations, they're not looking for understanding. They're looking for control. And when you stop feeding that control with your words, they lose their grip. You're not cold. You're just no longer available for manipulation. You're not heartless. You just finally realized your heart deserves better than constant negotiation. And you're not weak for going quiet. You're strong because silence is restraint, and restraint is power. This is not about revenge. This is about reclamation. You're not trying to get even. You're trying to get free. That's Stoicism in action. No drama, no performance. Just quiet, disciplined movement forward. You don't scream that you've changed. You move differently. You respond differently. You live differently. That's when people notice. Not when you fight for your worth, but when you embody it without apology. So if you're in a place right now where you're done explaining, done defending, done shrinking just to be accepted, then I want you to know something. You haven't lost your power. You've just started using it for you. You've stopped leaking energy into people who never planned to pour anything back. And now, your silence, it's not absence. It's presence. The kind that shifts the energy in the room. The kind that says, I'm no longer for sale. Part 3. Karma doesn't always knock. Sometimes it whispers. Karma doesn't always knock. It doesn't always come with thunder. It doesn't announce itself with grand gestures or instant consequences. Sometimes, karma arrives in silence. It shows up in the late hours of the night, in the form of a gnawing emptiness they can't explain, in the regret that creeps in when the distractions fade, in the realization that they lost something real, And by then, it's already too late. You were the one they didn't think they'd miss, the loyal one, the consistent one. The soul that stayed even when you had every reason to leave. They thought you were replaceable. They thought the world was full of people like you. But now, they know better. Because there's no replacement for genuine. No substitute for a steady heart. And once you're gone, the silence you leave behind is louder than any argument you ever could have made. They may never say it out loud. They may never apologize. They may never show you their regret. But don't let that fool you, because karma doesn't need your permission. It doesn't need witnesses. It works in quiet ways, through lost peace, missed opportunities, and the weight of knowing they can never go back. You don't need to wish them pain. You don't need to keep checking to see if they've gotten what they deserve. Life handles that far better than you ever could. Let's be honest. Revenge feels tempting, doesn't it? To prove a point. To let them feel what they made you feel. To show them that they didn't break you. But here's the truth the Stoics taught us. You don't need revenge. You need clarity. You need peace. You need to glow so brightly that your very existence becomes the answer. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, don't become like them. Don't let what they did shape what you become. Let your growth speak louder than your anger ever could. That's karma too, not in punishment, but in contrast. Because while they're stuck recycling old patterns, you're building something new. While they're chasing temporary validation, you're anchored in real worth. While they're haunted by what they lost, you're glowing from what you found. Yourself. What they lost wasn't just a person. They lost presence. They lost loyalty. They lost the version of you that still believed in them, before the betrayal. And the truth is, they may find company, but they'll never find another soul that stayed the way you did. Let that be enough. Not in bitterness, but in wisdom. Because while they're feeling the void, you're walking in peace. And that's a trade they'll feel for a long time. So don't waste your light chasing justice. Don't lose your focus waiting for closure. Don't lower yourself to match the energy that broke you. Instead, choose growth. Choose presence. Choose the version of you that doesn't need a courtroom to feel whole. Your evolution is the loudest silence they'll ever hear. And trust me, they hear it. You don't need to slam doors. You don't need to curse names. You don't even need to be angry anymore. Your life, lived fully, is the signature. Your glow is the echo. And karma, it doesn't always knock. Sometimes it simply watches as you rise. Part 4. The universe keeps receipts. Karma doesn't forget. You may not have seen it happen. No thunder, no instant consequences, no dramatic collapse. But just because it didn't happen on your timeline, doesn't mean it didn't happen at all. Because the universe keeps receipts. And karma, she's patient, she's precise, and above all, she's deeply personal. Here's the thing no one wants to admit. When people hurt you and walk away like nothing happened, when they lie, manipulate, or betray without blinking, you wonder, will they ever face consequences? But karma doesn't rush. It waits for the moment that will mean the most. It doesn't just strike randomly. It strikes strategically, right where it hurts, right where they once felt untouchable. Seneca had it right. Because time, unlike people, doesn't lie. Time has a way of peeling back the mask, of revealing intentions, of delivering justice, quietly and thoroughly. So when someone wrongs you, and you don't see anything happen to them, don't let that fool you. The universe isn't blind. It's just patient. I've seen it firsthand. People who once thought they got away with it, suddenly losing what mattered most to them. A relationship, a reputation, a sense of peace they once took for granted. And often, the hit doesn't come from where they expect. It doesn't come from you. It comes from within. That gnawing guilt they bury deep. That loneliness they can't explain. That realization that they destroyed something they can't recreate. That is karma. You see, karma is not always chaos. Sometimes it's clarity. It's that quiet moment when they realize the cost. When they remember your loyalty, your goodness, your patience, and they understand, too late, that what they lost was rare. It's not about punishment. It's about balance. What you give out eventually finds its way back. Now don't get this twisted. Karma isn't your weapon. It's not a tool for revenge. It's a universal law of return. You don't need to wish them harm. You don't need to track their downfall. You don't need to play judge or jury. The Stoics remind us, what is beyond your control is not your concern. Your only job is to master your own life, to choose virtue over bitterness, to focus on growth, not gossip. To rise so high you don't even feel the pull to look back. Because while karma is busy working in the background, you're busy building peace. While they're looking over their shoulder, you're walking forward, unshaken. While they're haunted by who they once were, you're becoming who you were meant to be. That's the real reward. Not watching them fall, but realizing you never needed them to rise. The universe keeps receipts, not because it wants to destroy them, but because truth always demands balance. And in the end, the truth always finds its way. Time reveals who was genuine and who was just pretending. So let it go. Not because they deserve peace, but because you do. Part 5. Karma's justice comes in silence and irony. Justice doesn't always come with flashing lights. It doesn't always show up with loud apologies or public reckoning. Sometimes, justice comes in silence, wrapped in irony, delivered not as punishment, but as perfect precision. That's how karma works. It doesn't always return the same pain you felt. It returns the pain they fear most. You were loyal, consistent, present, and they gambled on the idea that you always would be. Now, they're alone. Not necessarily without people, but alone in a way that no company can fix. Because karma doesn't hit where you hurt. It hits where they feel safest. For some, that looks like loneliness, realizing they pushed away the one person who actually cared. For others, it's failure, the collapse of the image they worked so hard to maintain, finally exposing what they tried so desperately to hide. And for many, it's being stuck in relationships that reflect the chaos they once caused. That's karma. Not fire and brimstone, but a mirror. You may not see it. You may never hear about it. You might even think they got away with it. But the Stoics remind us, not every victory is visible, and not every justice is immediate. Epictetus taught us to focus only on what we can control, our thoughts, our actions, our inner peace. You don't need to chase karma. You don't need to hope for revenge, because life already knows exactly where to deliver the message. You know what's ironic? The very peace they once took for granted is now the storm they live in. The very love they treated as disposable is now the void they can't fill. The loyalty they laughed at is the kind they can't find again. This is the justice you'll never need to witness, because the universe doesn't require your front row seat. Let's be honest, they may appear unbothered, posting pictures, smiling, surrounded by noise. But deep down, they feel it. Not because you cursed them, but because they cursed themselves by thinking they could misuse a good heart and come out clean. It doesn't work like that. The Stoics would say, "He who wrongs another, wrongs himself." Marcus Aurelius. Regret doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers at 2 a.m. It shows up in stillness, in echoes, in the space where your presence used to be. They may not message you. They may never say sorry. But that feeling, that absence they can't shake, that's karma's hand. Quiet, but certain. And you didn't seek revenge. You didn't beg, plot, or fight dirty. You simply healed. You chose discipline over drama, presence over pettiness, power over pain. And that is what justice really looks like. Because while they're spinning in circles, you're walking in alignment. And while they're haunted by irony, you're defined by growth. So if you've ever wondered, will they ever face what they did? Let me offer this. Justice may not arrive how you imagined it, but it will arrive where it matters most. And often it comes wrapped not in punishment, but in poetic irony. That's how the universe balances the scales, not always with a bang, but with truth. Part 6. The Stoic Response. Detachment over drama. There comes a moment when you stop looking back, when you stop needing closure, when you no longer care what they say or what they think, not because you're cold, but because you've chosen clarity. Not because you're weak, but because you've chosen detachment over drama. That's the Stoic stance. Stoics don't wait around to watch karma play out. They don't chase justice, demand apologies, or hope for regret. Why? Because their peace doesn't depend on someone else's downfall. They've learned something most people never will. That emotional detachment is not indifference. It's power. Marcus Aurelius said it best. When someone wrongs you, hurts you, betrays you, your strongest move isn't to fight back. It's to become better. To rise in silence, to grow in discipline, to level up so far that their actions no longer even touch you. That's real power. That's real revenge. And it doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. Think about this. What happens when you stop reacting to the things that once triggered you? What happens when you stop playing the emotional games? The energy shifts. Because you're no longer tied to their chaos. You're no longer trying to prove, fix, or explain anything. You're free. And that freedom? It's what they never expected. Let me share something I've learned. The people who hurt you expect you to chase them, to argue, to spiral, to react. They feed on drama. They expect war. But when you give them detachment instead of drama, you starve their ego. And suddenly the power they thought they had over you evaporates. Because leveling up isn't loud. It doesn't seek validation. It doesn't scream, "Look at me now." No, leveling up is internal. It's the decision to stop being who you were in their story and start becoming who you were meant to be in yours. The Stoics called this living in accordance with nature. It means rising above what you cannot control and pouring your energy only into what you can. Your mind, your habits, your integrity, your future. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've accepted reality and you choose to move forward without resentment. It's letting go of the desire to fix someone else's behavior and focusing instead on mastering your own. It's not apathy. It's wisdom. You don't control whether they apologize. You don't control if karma hits. You don't control their story, but you control how you walk away. You control how you heal. You control how you rise. That's the Stoic stance. Quiet, calm, unshaken. Not because you don't feel, but because you choose what's worthy of your emotion. So let them talk. Let them spin stories. Let them wonder why you no longer respond. Because silence is your strategy. Peace is your position, and growth is your response. This is not about revenge. This is about removal of the drama, of the noise, of anything that no longer aligns with your purpose. Part 7. Their regret is not your responsibility. There will come a day when they finally realize what they lost, when the weight of their choices begins to press on their heart, when the games they played no longer feel fun, but foolish, when they scroll through old conversations and feel the silence hit harder than they ever expected. But by then, it's too late, and you're no longer there. See, here's the truth most people don't understand until it's too late. When you walked away, you didn't slam doors. You didn't curse them out. You didn't start a war. You chose silence, and in doing so, you chose power, because silence is not weakness. It's not surrender. It's evolution. It's a signal that you've stopped trying to fix what wasn't yours to fix and started focusing on what is yourself. Let me say something to you clearly. Their regret is not your responsibility. Their realization does not require your return. Their apology, if it ever comes, does not require your acceptance. Their sadness is not your job to soothe, because the moment they made the choice to mistreat you, to take you for granted, to test your limits, they also chose the risk of losing you, and you followed through, not with revenge, but with growth. You didn't need to prove them wrong. You just needed to become someone they could no longer reach. That's stoicism in motion. Not reacting to their chaos, but choosing calm. Not forcing closure, but creating it within yourself. You stopped looking back, because there was nothing there left to find. They'll remember you differently now, not as the one they thought they could manipulate, but as the one who didn't come back, as the one who went silent and never broke that silence, as the one who didn't make a scene because their absence became louder than anything you could have said. That's not revenge, that's self-respect. And if they reach out one day trying to reconnect, trying to explain, it's okay to hear them, it's okay to forgive them, but it's also okay to say nothing, to walk away again, to protect the peace you worked so hard to rebuild. Forgiveness isn't the same as re-entry. You don't owe them a second chance just because they finally realized what they lost. Most of the pain we carry comes from reliving what already ended. You've done that long enough. Now it's time to live forward, to build the life that betrayal tried to block, to become the version of you that no longer needs closure, because you've already closed that chapter yourself. Let them sit with their regret. You've already healed. You've already grown. You've already left. And the door you closed behind you, it wasn't an act of revenge. It was an act of rebirth. So no, you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to make them feel better. You don't even have to respond, because your silence is not empty. It's full of wisdom, boundaries, and peace. And that's louder than anything they expected. Part 8. Forgiveness is freedom, not access. Forgiveness. It's one of the most misunderstood words in the entire human experience. People think that when you forgive, you're giving them another chance, that you're saying, "Come back, let's try again." But the truth is far more powerful. Forgiveness isn't reconciliation. It's not about restoring what was broken. It's not a key to reopen the door. Forgiveness is freedom. And it's not for them. It's for you. We carry so much. Anger. Betrayal. Resentment. Wounds that were never acknowledged, never apologized for. And we think holding on protects us, that if we let go, somehow they get away with it. But what if I told you, they're not the ones carrying the weight? You are. Stoic philosophy teaches us to detach from what we cannot control. And resentment is one of those things. You can't make them feel what they should have felt. You can't rewrite what happened. You can't undo the betrayal or force the apology that never came. But you can choose how much space that story continues to take up in your life. When you hold on to bitterness, you're still bound to the person who hurt you. They may have walked away, but you're still holding the emotional leash. Forgiveness is when you cut that cord, not to let them back in, but to set yourself free. To no longer be defined by what they did. To no longer rehearse the pain on repeat. You forgive so you can move forward. Forgiveness is not weakness, it's strength. It's not saying what you did was okay. It's saying, I refuse to let what you did control me anymore. Big difference. You're not letting them off the hook. You're stepping off the hook yourself. Because dragging pain into every new chapter only keeps you stuck in the old one. Ask yourself, who are you still angry at? Who are you still proving something to in your head? Who do you secretly hope will feel the sting of regret? And now ask yourself, is that person still living in your mind while you put your real life on pause? That's what forgiveness is meant to end. Not to make them feel better, but to make you whole again. Your healing doesn't need their apology. Your peace doesn't require their involvement. Your next chapter is not a group project. Forgive, not to welcome them back, but to release yourself from the invisible grip of the past. That's what the Stoics understood. Peace is not something you find from others. It's something you decide to protect within yourself. So no, forgiveness doesn't mean they get access to your life again. It doesn't mean what they did was justified. It doesn't mean you'll ever forget. It means you've chosen something bigger than revenge. Freedom. Freedom from replaying that moment. Freedom from carrying a story that no longer serves you. Freedom to finally put the weight down and walk forward. Part 9. Clarity over closure. Let's be honest. We've all waited for that one moment, that one message, that one apology that never came. We tell ourselves, once they admit what they did, I'll finally be able to move on. We chase closure like it's a destination, something they're holding hostage, and we just need them to hand it over. But here's the truth. Closure doesn't come from them. It comes from you. It comes from your release, from your decision to stop needing their understanding in order to heal, from choosing clarity over closure. Because waiting for them to see your side, to finally get it, to take responsibility, that's not healing. That's dependency, disguised as hope. And the Stoics would tell you, hope is not a strategy. Think about that for a second. If your peace is still tied to their remorse, if your joy is still waiting in the same room as their apology, then who really has the power? Not you, Because as long as you're waiting for someone else's permission to move on, you're not free. This is what Epictetus meant. The person who angers you controls you. The person who holds your need for closure holds your future. But what if you let that go? What if you stopped chasing an explanation and started creating your evolution? What if you stopped asking, why did they do it? And started asking, why am I still giving them space in my mind? Let's flip the script. Closure isn't a conversation. It's a decision. It's choosing to stop bleeding from wounds they're not even trying to heal. It's deciding, I don't need your apology to accept what happened. Because sometimes closure doesn't come in words. It comes in clarity. Clarity that says, I saw who you were. I gave what I could. And now I'm done. That's strength. That's sovereignty. That's stoicism in motion. And listen, you don't have to pretend it doesn't hurt. It's okay to feel disappointed, to grieve what never got resolved, to sit with the sadness of what could have been, but don't stay there. Don't camp in confusion. Don't let their silence become the soundtrack of your future, because your clarity is louder than their apology ever could be. You can spend the next 6 months wondering what you did wrong, or you can spend the next 6 months rebuilding your strength. You can scroll through the past, or you can step into the person you're becoming. That's the power of clarity. It doesn't need permission. It doesn't wait for an ending. It creates one. So here's your reminder. You're not broken because someone couldn't give you closure. You're not unfinished because the chapter didn't end with a bow. Your story belongs to you. You get to close the book. You get to walk forward. You get to say, this ends here, not because you said so, but because I did. And that's how you take your power back. So don't wait for the apology. Don't beg for the recognition. Don't need them to understand what they never cared to see. Let your clarity be the closure. Let your peace be the proof. And let your growth speak louder than their silence ever will. Part 10. Redefining power when silence is stronger than revenge. Let's talk about power. Not the kind that shouts. Not the kind that dominates a room. Not the kind that relies on control, threats, or attention. I'm talking about real power. The quiet kind. The steady kind. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself, because it's built from within. You see, we've been taught that power is in the reaction, that you have to respond, that you have to clap back, that you have to show them who they're messing with. But true power, real, unshakable power, looks very different. It looks like emotional intelligence. It looks like self-restraint. It looks like choosing your peace over your pride. That's what Stoicism teaches us. Not to suppress your feelings, but to discipline your responses. To ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Is this worthy of disturbing my peace? Because most of the time it's not. And the older you get, the more you realize, not everything deserves a response. Not everyone deserves your reaction. Sometimes, silence is the highest form of strength. They expect you to lash out, to lose control, to play the game. But you don't. Because when you've leveled up emotionally, you understand that some battles are designed to distract you from your purpose. And your purpose is too important to be derailed by people who can't regulate their own behavior. Here's the thing. You don't need to match anyone's energy. You don't need to be louder to be stronger. You don't need to show them anything. Because karma is already speaking. And it speaks fluently. Let it do the talking. While you protect your peace, tend to your growth, and stay silent. Think about this. The strongest person in the room isn't the one who dominates the conversation. It's the one who doesn't flinch when provoked. It's the person who could explode, but chooses not to. Who could destroy, but chooses to build. Who could retaliate, but chooses to walk away. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. That's what emotional maturity looks like. Revenge is emotional. It's tempting. It's loud. But silence? Silence is calculated. It's confident. It says, I'm not wasting a single breath proving anything to anyone. Because while they're waiting for a reaction, you're already miles ahead. So today I challenge you, redefine what power looks like in your life. Not through dominance, not through drama, but through discipline. Redefine power as the ability to pause before you speak, to stay calm when it's easier to explode, to rise above when it's easier to sink to their level. Because in a world where everyone's trying to win the argument, you win by keeping your center. Emotional intelligence is a form of strength most people will never master. But when you do, you realize something powerful. You don't need to react to everything. You don't need to explain your peace. You just live it. And the louder you live it, the quieter your enemies become. Part 11. Letting the past be a lesson. There's a moment in life, quiet, subtle, where you realize you've outgrown who you used to be. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a still, undeniable sense that you're no longer the person who once tolerated that pain, who once excused that behavior, who once gave access to people who didn't deserve it. And now, you're not angry, you're not bitter. You're aware. Growth isn't just about leveling up, it's about letting go. Letting go of the version of yourself who didn't yet know better, who loved blindly, who gave second, third, fourth chances, who kept handing out forgiveness like it was candy, hoping it would change someone who had no intention of evolving. And now, you know better. Because as Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time, the past. It's not your prison, it's your professor. It came to teach. Not to define you, not to haunt you, not to drag behind you like a chain, but to shape you into someone stronger, someone wiser, someone more aware of what they deserve and what they will never settle for again. And here's the truth. Just because you healed doesn't mean they get to come back. Just because you've grown doesn't mean they earned a new seat at your table. Growth doesn't mean reunion. It means discernment. It means asking yourself, why would I invite back the very energy that once wounded me? You don't owe access to those who mistook your kindness for weakness. You don't owe space to people who only brought confusion, not clarity. You don't owe closure to those who knew better and chose worse. This is where Stoicism steps in. The Stoics teach us that pain is part of life, yes, but repeating it is a choice. If you've learned the lesson, why reopen the wound? You're not here to fix them. You're not here to rescue them from the consequences of their choices. You're here to live forward, to create a life that reflects what you've learned, not what you've survived. And sometimes that means loving people from a distance. Sometimes it means closing a door and not leaving it cracked open, not because you're angry, but because you've found peace that doesn't include their chaos. So here's your reminder. You outgrew the version of yourself that allowed disrespect to be normalized. You outgrew the cycles, the drama, the hope that maybe this time it would be different. And now, you don't live in the past. You learn from it. You don't hold grudges. You hold standards. You don't need to relive what broke you. You only need to remember the lesson, so you never repeat the mistake. Let the past be what it was, a lesson, not a sentence, not a chain. And as you move forward, Carry the wisdom, not the weight. Part 12. The best revenge is living well. Let them talk. They expected you to break. They thought you'd waste your energy chasing closure, chasing drama, chasing them. They didn't expect this version of you, the one who didn't retaliate, but rebuilt. The one who didn't scream, but soared. You didn't post angry quotes. You didn't argue your worth. You just rose. You built. You glowed. And that right there, that's the revenge they never saw coming. You see, when people can no longer control you, they'll try to talk about you. They'll throw shade, spread rumors, twist the story. Because your silence is uncomfortable. Your growth is unsettling. And your ability to move forward without them, that's something they can't explain, so they try to distort it. But here's what they forget. Your focus is louder than their gossip. Your glow is brighter than their noise. And your direction? It doesn't include their name anymore. Read that again. You don't rise by proving, not to them, not to anyone. You rise by moving differently, not emotionally, strategically, not with vengeance, but with vision. While they're busy recycling old narratives, you're writing a new one, on your terms. No drama, no explanation. Just elevation. This is how the Stoics lived. They didn't seek applause. They didn't explain their discipline. They didn't chase revenge, because to chase is to stoop. And what you're doing? You're rising, with calm, with clarity, with power. Stoic power isn't about getting even. It's about getting ahead. And the irony? That kind of strength doesn't just silence your enemies. It educates them. So let them gossip. Let them whisper. Let them create their little versions of your life in their heads. That's their distraction. But you have things to build, dreams to chase, peace to protect. And every second you waste explaining who you are is a second stolen from who you're becoming. You don't need to perform your comeback. You are your comeback. The way you sleep now, that's revenge. The peace in your space, that's revenge. The way you don't flinch when their name comes up anymore. That's the loudest, most poetic kind of revenge life can deliver. And you didn't have to lift a finger in retaliation. You just had to rise. So here's your reminder. You're not here to impress them. You're not here to prove anything. You're here to become everything they never believed you could be, without saying a word. And that, my friend, that's what living the revenge looks like. Part 13. Protecting your peace. Boundaries are not bitterness. There comes a moment in life when you no longer want to win the argument. You no longer want revenge. You no longer need to explain your side of the story. You just want peace. But peace, my friend, real peace, doesn't just happen. It's protected. It's earned. And sometimes it's defended. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's one of the greatest forms of strength. It doesn't mean you forget what happened. It doesn't mean you pretend it didn't hurt. It means you've reached a point where you value your mental clarity more than your need for validation. You let go, not because they deserve peace, but because you do. Forgiveness is self-mastery. It's choosing not to carry the weight of what someone else did wrong. It's releasing yourself from the emotional leash that ties you to their chaos. But don't confuse this with an invitation. Forgiveness is not access. You can forgive someone and still keep the door closed. Just because you've healed doesn't mean you owe them a seat in your life again. Just because you've moved on doesn't mean they get to move back in. Let's be clear. Moving on is not the same as welcoming them back. Forgiveness is internal. Boundaries are external, and both are necessary. You don't need to prove that you've healed by being available. You don't need to show your growth by allowing someone to repeat the cycle. Stoic wisdom teaches us this: what we allow is a reflection of what we value. And if you value peace, you must guard it, because peace isn't passive. It's not a personality trait, it's a practice. And that practice requires saying no, sometimes gently, sometimes firmly, but always with clarity. You're not bitter because you created distance. You're not cold for choosing silence. You're not overreacting for protecting what you've built within yourself. Let me ask you this. Would you leave the front door of your home wide open to someone who broke in once before? No. Then why would you leave your emotional door unlocked for someone who already showed you they can't be trusted with your heart? Protecting your peace means prioritizing your well-being over someone else's comfort. It means choosing alignment over obligation. It means understanding that not everyone deserves a second chance at you, because once you've healed, your energy becomes expensive. And not everyone can afford access. You're not here to carry other people's chaos. You're not here to entertain those who only show up when it benefits them. You're not here to prove that you're the bigger person by tolerating what once broke you. You're here to protect your space, to protect your heart, to protect your peace. And that's not just strength. That's sovereignty. The final transformation: you didn't react, you rose. You didn't clap back. You didn't chase revenge. You didn't engage in drama. You didn't try to prove anything. You elevated. And that's what they never expected. Because when they betrayed you, mistreated you, dismissed you, they thought they broke something in you. But all they did was trigger the most powerful version of you to awaken. You see, they'll feel regret, not because you punished them, not because you humiliated them, but because they'll see who you became without them. They'll watch you rise, not in rage, but in stillness, not with noise, but with presence. You didn't get even. You got untouchable. This is the final Stoic reminder. Your power was never in controlling them. It was never in rewriting the past or forcing their apology. Your power, your transformation, was always in one place: your mind. The ability to hold your silence when chaos begged you to scream. The ability to focus inward while the world demanded you react outward. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. They thought your silence meant you had nothing to say. What they didn't realize is that silence was the loudest thing you could have chosen. Because silence says, you can no longer reach me. I've moved beyond where your words can touch. I've outgrown the level where this kind of energy even matters. That's not just peace, that's sovereignty. Let's be clear, they may never say it. They may never admit it, but they'll feel it. Every time they see your peace. Every time they hear about your progress. Every time they realize your life is no longer connected to theirs. And you'll feel something else entirely. Rebirth, not revenge, not closure. Just the beautiful, grounded knowing that you didn't stoop. You soared. And that, my friend, is the final transformation. When you no longer react because your energy is too valuable. When you no longer explain because your growth speaks for itself. When you no longer seek validation because your path is yours now and yours alone. That's not just healing. That's liberation. That's the Stoic life. Unshaken, unreachable, unbothered. So let them wonder. Let them rewrite the story. Let them talk about who you were, because you've evolved. You've elevated. And most importantly, you've escaped the gravity of their chaos. And the greatest revenge? It was never revenge at all. It was this: becoming someone they no longer have access to. If you've chosen to rise instead of react, if you've decided to be untouchable, not angry, drop this in the comments. I didn't clap back, I transformed. And if you're walking this stoic path of emotional mastery and quiet strength, subscribe to this channel. Because here we don't get even, we get free.